The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 300 meters of polished crystal floor on station Kepler 7. Ambassador Daniel Price stood at the human delegation podium and looked across the vast room filled with representatives from 47 different alien civilizations. His hands gripped the edges of the podium as he prepared to speak once more. For 3 years he had stood in this same spot and delivered the same requests. For 3 years the council had given him the same dismissive responses. Behind him sat Commander Lisa Hayes, Captain Eric Stone, and Dr. Richard Blake. They represented the military, fleet operations, and scientific community of Earth. All 3 wore the dark blue uniforms of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. All 3 had the same tired expression that came from months of fruitless negotiation. The Vraxian speaker rose from his seat. His body was made of living crystal that caught and reflected the chamber lights in rainbow patterns. When he spoke, his voice came through translation devices that turned his resonant tones into standard English. The younger races must earn their place through service, he said. Humanity's request for independent trade routes is premature by several centuries. The words echoed through the chamber. Daniel felt his jaw muscles tighten. Service was their polite word for something much darker. It meant control. It meant subjugation. It meant humanity would never be treated as equals no matter what they accomplished. Commander Lisa Hayes leaned forward and whispered into her communication device. The latest reports from human colonies painted a grim picture. Every settlement outside the Sol system operated under what the Council called galactic supervision. In practice, this meant alien overseers controlled resource extraction, monitored birth rates, and restricted technological development. Human merchant ships needed Council permits for every single jump through hyperspace. Every transaction required approval. Every breath humanity took among the stars came with strings attached. The Zathrene delegate pulsed with bioluminescent light. Its body was a flowing mass of tissue that changed colors to express emotion. The translator rendered its communication as words, but the meaning was clear in the condescending orange glow it displayed. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, the Zathrene said, when humanity has proven its commitment to galactic stability. Captain Eric Stone pulled up a data file on his tablet. The military report showed the reality behind the diplomatic language. Human colonies had no control over their own defense. Council peacekeepers stationed themselves on every human world. They claimed it was for protection, but everyone knew the truth. The peacekeepers were there to make sure humanity stayed in its assigned place. Human scientists made breakthrough after breakthrough in materials science, medical technology, and engineering. Earth had contributed innovations that revolutionized 3 different sectors of galactic commerce. Yet when humans applied for research grants or requested access to advanced facilities, the Council found reasons to deny them. The message was always the same. Wait your turn. Prove yourselves. Stay in your lane. Daniel Price had been a diplomat for 20 years. He had negotiated treaties, resolved conflicts, and built bridges between opposing factions. He believed in the power of dialogue and compromise, but standing in this chamber for the 1,000th time, listening to the same empty promises, something inside him finally broke. He touched the datapad that lay on his podium. Inside that device was a document that had been prepared in absolute secrecy. It contained contingency plans that had been developed over the past 18 months. Plans that assumed diplomacy would fail. Plans for what came next. The Kelrath Syndicate representative spoke next. The Kelrath resembled large insects with multiple limbs and compound eyes. This one wore translation equipment that made its clicking mandibles sound like smooth speech. Humanity has contributed admirably to galactic society, it said. In time, with patience and dedication, you will earn greater privileges. More waiting, more patience, more promises of a future that would never come. Daniel had heard enough. He straightened his uniform and activated his communication device. The human delegation requests a 30-minute recess to consider the Council's position, he announced. The Vraxian speaker made a gesture of approval. Of course, take all the time you need. The crystal being probably thought this was another sign of human weakness, another moment where the young species would huddle together and then come back to accept whatever scraps the Council offered. Daniel gathered his team and they walked out of the chamber. Their footsteps echoed on the crystal floor. Behind them, the alien delegates began chatting among themselves. None of them suspected that they would never see the human delegation return. In the private conference room assigned to Earth's representatives, Daniel sealed the door and activated privacy shields. He looked at each member of his team. Lisa, Eric, Richard. They had become more than colleagues over these 3 years. They were friends who had shared the frustration of watching their species be treated like children. "Are we certain about this?" Lisa asked. Her voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the weight behind the question. This decision would change everything. Eric pulled up a holographic display. It showed the position of every human vessel in Council space. 214 ships ranging from massive colony arcs to swift military destroyers. Every captain had received encrypted orders 3 days ago. Every crew was ready. Richard added his own display showing the breakthrough that made everything possible. For the past year, a secret research team on Earth had been working on a problem. How could humanity travel faster than light without using Council jump gates or their regulated hyperspace corridors? The answer had come 6 months ago. A completely new form of FTL travel that the Council knew nothing about. "We've been planning this for 18 months, Daniel said. Every simulation shows we can evacuate all human personnel from Council space within 72 hours. Every colony has been quietly preparing. Governor Paul Stevens on New Terra has evacuation protocols ready to move 18,000 people. Station Commander Karen White on Armstrong Station can evacuate 12,000. The numbers went on. When we leave completely. We take every human soul out of their reach. But where do we go? Lisa asked. That was the real question. Richard smiled for the first time in weeks. We've identified 43 suitable systems beyond Council space. Systems rich in resources that the Council never bothered to explore because they're too far from their established territories. With the Carson Drive, we can reach them. We can establish new colonies without asking anyone's permission. We can build our own civilization on our own terms. The decision was made in that moment. No vote was needed. They all understood that humanity had reached a crossroads. They could continue bowing and scraping for another 1,000 years, hoping the Council would eventually grant them equality. Or they could take their destiny into their own hands. Daniel activated his secure communication channel. It connected directly to President Helen Grant in the underground command center back on Earth. "Madam President," Daniel said, "initiate protocol exodus. The authorization codes have been sent." On Earth, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Helen Grant sat in a command center surrounded by military officers and government officials. She had been elected on a platform of gaining humanity's independence among the stars. She had promised her people that she would find a way to break free from Council control. Now that moment had arrived. She looked at the faces around her. These were the people who had kept the secret, who had built the ships, developed the technology, and prepared the colonies for departure. "Execute Protocol Exodus," she said. "Bring our people home." Across human space, encrypted messages arrived simultaneously. Colonial governors opened sealed orders they had been carrying for months. Ship captains activated contingency plans that had been hidden in their secure computers. Military commanders began coordinating a withdrawal that had to be perfect. One mistake, one delay, one ship left behind, and the Council might discover what humanity was planning. Within hours, human settlements began their coordinated evacuation. Families packed only what they could carry. Children were told they were going on a journey to new worlds. On New Terra, Paul Stevens watched as transport ships descended to pick up his colonists. The buildings they left behind were intact. The infrastructure they had built remained functional, but every human was leaving. Back on Station Kepler 7, Daniel Price prepared humanity's final message to the Galactic Council. He recorded it carefully, choosing each word with precision. This message would be delivered exactly 30 minutes after the last human ship had jumped away. By the time the Council heard it, humanity would be gone. He kept it brief and professional. Humanity withdraws from Galactic Council membership. Effective immediately. We relinquish all assigned territories, cease all cooperative programs, and terminate all diplomatic relations. We came seeking equals and found only hierarchy. We will make our own way among the stars. Do not follow us. The message was loaded into the station's communication system with a time delay. Daniel and his team boarded their shuttle and departed Kepler 7. Behind them, the Council delegates were still in their chambers. Lieutenant Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the colony ship New Horizon and watched Earth's moon grow smaller in the viewport. Around him, 300 families gathered with their children pressed against the transparent walls. Some kids were crying. Others seemed excited about the adventure. Most adults wore expressions that mixed fear with determination. This was the moment they had been preparing for without fully understanding what it meant. They were leaving behind everything humanity had ever known. The moon, that ancient companion that had watched over Earth for billions of years, was now just a gray dot in the darkness. "All ships report ready," his co-pilot Amy Foster announced from the command deck. "The fleet is assembled and waiting for your order." Jake pulled up the tactical display on his wrist device. 214 vessels showed green status indicators. Every human ship in Council space had received the encrypted message 72 hours earlier. "Come home, prepare for departure. The galaxy has shown us where we stand." Now those ships were gathered at the rally point beyond Neptune's orbit. Some were massive colony arcs like New Horizon, capable of carrying 10,000 people each. Others were swift military destroyers that would protect the fleet during their journey. Cargo vessels carried supplies, equipment, and everything humanity would need to start fresh in unknown space. President Helen Grant's face appeared on every screen throughout the fleet. She sat in the command center in Colorado, but her image was broadcast to every human settlement, every station, every outpost. Her voice was calm and steady. "We came to the stars seeking partnership," she said. "We found only masters who would never see us as equals. Today we choose a different path." Her words echoed through corridors and cabins across 200 ships. People stopped what they were doing to listen. This was the moment that would define their species for generations to come. The plan had been in development for over a year. While humanity's diplomats smiled and nodded at council meetings, Earth's best minds had been working in secret laboratories and classified military facilities. The problem seemed impossible at first. How could an entire civilization disappear when the galaxy watched their every move? The council monitored all hyperspace jumps. They controlled the gate network that connected star systems. They tracked ship movements through sensor arrays scattered across known space. For any other species, escape would be impossible. But humanity had always been good at finding new solutions to old problems. Dr. Richard Blake had led the research team that cracked the puzzle. He was a physicist who specialized in faster-than-light theory. For decades, everyone assumed there was only one way to exceed light speed. You entered hyperspace through carefully calculated jump points and rode the quantum currents between stars. The Council had perfected this method over thousands of years. Their gates made it safe and predictable. But Richard had asked a different question. What if hyperspace wasn't the only option? What if there was another layer of reality that could be accessed for FTL travel? His team discovered what they called compressed space. By generating a specific type of energy field, a ship could fold the distance between 2 points. It wasn't teleportation. It was more like sliding through a wrinkle in space itself. The effect was the same. You could travel hundreds of light years in minutes without touching hyperspace at all. They called it the Carson Drive, named after Kevin Carson, the engineer who built the first working prototype. The technology was kept absolutely secret. Only a handful of people knew it existed. Every human ship had been quietly retrofitted with the new drive over the past 6 months. The Council never noticed. They were too busy congratulating themselves on keeping humanity in its place. Now that technology would allow humanity to vanish completely. Across human space, the evacuation proceeded like a military operation. Colony administrators like Governor Paul Stevens on New Terra had been preparing for months. They had organized their 18,000 settlers into evacuation groups. Each group knew their assigned transport ship. Each family had practiced the boarding procedure. When the order came, the evacuation took less than 40 hours. They left behind homes they had built, farms they had cultivated, and infrastructure they had created. But they took every human life. On Mining Station Vega 7, Operations Chief Karen White coordinated the departure of 12,000 workers. The station produced rare metals that the Council valued highly. Human miners had spent years tunneling through asteroid rock to extract those resources. Now they were leaving it all behind. The mining equipment sat idle. The processing facilities stood empty. The living quarters were abandoned but intact. Karen made sure every human was accounted for before she boarded the last transport. As her ship pulled away, she looked back at the station one final time. Let them mine their own metals, she thought. The timing had to be perfect. If even one colony started evacuating too early, the Council might notice. If ships began gathering in suspicious numbers, sensors might detect the movement. So everything happened simultaneously across 40 different locations spread throughout Council space. Transport ships descended to planets and stations at the exact same moment. Evacuation procedures began within minutes of each other. It was the largest coordinated operation in human history, and it worked flawlessly. On station Kepler 7, Ambassador Daniel Price prepared to deliver humanity's final message. He had recorded it earlier, choosing his words carefully. The message was loaded into the station's communication system with a 30-minute delay. That would give him time to board his shuttle and escape before the Council received it. He walked through the empty human delegation offices one last time. These rooms had been his second home for 3 years. Now they would stand as a monument to failed diplomacy. He sealed the door behind him and headed to the docking bay. The message would play automatically at the designated time. It would appear on every Council delegate's screen. It would echo through the great chamber where humanity had pleaded for equality and been denied. Daniel had kept it brief and professional. No anger, no bitterness, just facts. Humanity withdraws from Galactic Council membership, effective immediately. We relinquish all assigned territories, cease all cooperative programs, and terminate all diplomatic relations. We came seeking equals and found only hierarchy. We will make our own way among the stars. Do not follow us. That final warning was important. Do not follow us. It wasn't a plea. It was a statement of intent. Humanity was leaving peacefully. They were abandoning Council space without destroying anything or harming anyone, but they wanted to be left alone. Any attempt to pursue them would be considered an act of aggression. Daniel hoped the Council would be smart enough to understand that. His shuttle departed Kepler 7th and docked with the waiting frigate Destiny. Captain Eric Stone greeted him in the airlock. All personnel accounted for, Eric reported. We're the last ship out. Daniel nodded and made his way to the bridge. Through the viewport, he could see Council space stretched out before them. Thousands of stars that humanity would no longer visit. Worlds they would no longer walk upon. A civilization they would no longer be part of. He felt no regret. Only relief. Execute jump, he ordered. The Carson drive activated with a low hum that vibrated through the hull. Space itself seemed to shimmer around the frigate. Then they were somewhere else. No violent wrenching. No disorienting transition. Just a smooth shift from one location to another. Behind them, they left no trace. No energy signature. No hyperspace wake. Nothing for Council sensors to detect. The Destiny had simply ceased to exist in their old location and appeared in a new one. 20 minutes later, every human vessel in Council space activated their drive simultaneously. From the Council's perspective, it must have seemed impossible. 214 ships vanished in the same instant. They didn't jump into hyperspace. They didn't use gate networks. They simply disappeared. Colony worlds showed no human life signs. Stations reported no human staff. Ships that had been on sensors one moment were gone the next. It was as if an entire species had been erased from existence. The human fleet gathered at the rally point in deep space, far beyond any Council monitoring. Jake Morrison looked at his tactical display and saw the entire fleet arranged in formation. Families aboard the colony arcs, military vessels providing escort, cargo ships carrying everything from medical supplies to manufacturing equipment. This was all that remained of humanity's presence in Council space. But it was enough. It was more than enough. President Helen Grant's second message reached the fleet. Her face showed pride and determination. We have crossed the threshold, she said. Behind us lies a civilization that never valued us. Ahead lies possibility. We carry with us everything that makes us human. Our courage, our creativity, our refusal to accept limitations that others try to impose. We will build new worlds. We will create new wonders. And we will do it as free people. Navigation coordinates flashed on every ship's display. 43 systems had been identified as suitable for colonization. Each colony arc had its assigned destination. The military vessels would escort them and then begin patrolling humanity's new territories. The adventure was just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos 3 hours after humanity's departure. The Vraxian High Chancellor Krethvar stared at the empty seats where the human delegation had sat for 3 years. His crystalline body pulsed with colors that indicated confusion and growing anger. The humans requested a recess, he said to the assembled delegates. That was over 3 hours ago. Where are they? An aide rushed forward with a data pad. The message trembled in the young Vraxian's hands as he presented it to his superior. Chancellor, this was left in the communication system. It was set to deliver 30 minutes after the human shuttle departed the station. Krethvar activated the message, and Daniel Price's face appeared on the holographic display. The human ambassador looked calm and professional as he delivered humanity's final statement. The words struck the council like a physical blow: withdrawal, termination of relations, abandonment of all territories. The phrase that caused the most shock was the simplest: do not follow us. It wasn't a request. It was a warning. Krethvar's crystalline body flickered through a dozen colors in rapid succession. This is unacceptable, he declared. Deploy tracking fleets to every human colony world immediately. Find them and bring them back. The orders went out across council space. Military vessels scrambled to investigate human settlements. Monitoring stations activated deep space sensors to search for any sign of ship movements. What they found was far more disturbing than anyone expected. On New Terra, the Zathrene overseer Talana walked through empty streets. The colony that had housed 18,000 humans just hours before now stood completely abandoned. She entered residential complexes and found meals still sitting on tables. Children's toys lay scattered in parks. Clothing hung in closets. Everything had been left behind except the people themselves. Talana's bioluminescence flickered with confusion as she sent her report to the council. They are gone, she transmitted. All of them. Not just the colonists, but our human support staff, our translators, our technical advisors. They left no indication of destination or method of departure. The pattern repeated across every human settlement. Mining Station Vega 7 stood empty with equipment still powered on. Research Facility Gamma showed signs of hasty but organized evacuation. Agricultural colonies on 3 different worlds reported complete absence of human life. It was as if 18,000 people here, 12,000 people there, 5,000 somewhere else had simply vanished into thin air. The Kelrath Syndicate sent urgent messages to the council. Director Vexol, a senior executive in the massive trading conglomerate, compiled a preliminary damage assessment. His report made disturbing reading. 40% of our technical innovation came from human consultants, he wrote. Our newest factory protocols were designed by human engineers. Our medical advances relied on human researchers. Our computational systems run on human written code. We have been building our prosperity on their contributions while treating them as junior partners. Now they are gone and we don't know how to replace them. The military reports were even more troubling. Fleet Admiral Crox reviewed sensor data from the time of humanity's departure. His analysis revealed something that should have been impossible. 214 human vessels had vanished simultaneously from 40 different locations across council space. They had not entered hyperspace through normal jump points. They had not used any known gate network. They had simply ceased to exist in their previous locations. No energy signatures, no hyperspace wakes, no trace of any kind. The Fleet Admiral's report to the Council was blunt. They possess faster-than-light technology we have never encountered. They evacuated 200,000 people from 40 locations simultaneously, with perfect coordination. They vanished without triggering a single monitoring array. The question is not where they went. The question is what else they have been hiding from us. Councillor Vreen of the Elothian Assembly convened an emergency session. Representatives from every council species gathered to address the crisis. The chamber buzzed with worried conversation in dozens of languages. Translation devices struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire exchanges. We must retrieve them, Vreen declared. The economic disruption alone could destabilize dozens of sectors. But other delegates weren't sure retrieval was even possible. How do you find someone who doesn't want to be found? How do you track ships that use technology you don't understand? How do you negotiate with people who have already made it clear they want nothing to do with you? The Morthak Collective discovered something that turned concern into genuine alarm. Chief Engineer Zalkrone was investigating the human-designed shipyards orbiting Morthak Prime when he encountered critical system failures. Manufacturing equipment refused to initialize. Quality control systems displayed error messages. Production lines that had operated flawlessly for months suddenly stopped functioning. He called in technical specialists to diagnose the problem. What they found was disturbing. Human-written code had been wiped remotely. Proprietary algorithms had been deleted. Backup systems contained nothing but a simple message. Property of Earth Confederation. License terminated. The realization spread through council space like wildfire. Humans hadn't just worked for them. They had built dependencies into every system they touched. Not obviously, not in ways that security scans could detect. But deep in the foundational code, buried in design specifications hidden in maintenance protocols, they had made themselves essential, while everyone assumed they were replaceable. Research analyst Vren compiled a comprehensive report on human contributions to galactic society. The numbers were shocking. Humans represented less than 1% of Council population, but had filed over 16,000 patents in 3 years. They had developed 400 new alloys. They had created medical treatments that extended lifespans for 8 different species. They had solved engineering problems that had stumped established experts for decades. Small independent stations that had hosted human communities faced immediate infrastructure collapse. On Prellis Station, Administrator Catort sent desperate messages begging for help. The water recycling system had been redesigned by a team of human engineers 6 months earlier. It now operated at twice the efficiency with half the power consumption. But something had gone wrong with the filtration matrices. None of Catort's remaining staff could diagnose the problem. "We have the documentation they left," Catort reported, "but it's written in technical language we struggle to understand. The humans who worked here didn't just follow our procedures. They improved everything they touched. We never bothered to learn how because we assumed they would always be here to maintain it." Medical facilities across Council space reported catastrophic failures. Dr. Terena of the Zathrene Healing Collective tried to explain to investigators how her entire organization had collapsed within days. "The diagnostic algorithms were human-designed," she admitted. "We thought they were simple tools that anyone could operate. We were wrong. The code was elegant and sophisticated beyond our ability to replicate. Without human technicians to maintain the systems, our patient mortality has increased by 40%. We are losing people because we lost the humans who kept our equipment running." The Vraxian Industrial Consortium faced production disasters across 17 worlds. Overseer Crethmore reviewed damage reports with mounting horror. Manufacturing facilities had ground to a halt. Quality control protocols failed. Supply chain management systems crashed. "We thought we were the masters assigning tasks to an inferior species," Crethmore reported. "We never realized they were building our modern infrastructure. They didn't just do what we asked. They innovated and improved everything. Now those improvements are failing and we don't have the expertise to fix them." The Council authorized massive search fleets to sweep neighboring sectors. Surely an entire species couldn't just disappear. They would leave some trace, some clue, some desperate colony that hadn't received the evacuation order. Military vessels spent 3 weeks scanning every system within 200 light-years of Council space. They found nothing, not a single human settlement, not one abandoned ship, not even debris or waste that might indicate where humanity had gone. It was as if 200,000 people had been erased from existence. The economic impacts began to cascade through galactic markets. The Kelrath Syndicate's stock value dropped by 30% in a single week. Insurance companies faced bankruptcy as infrastructure failure claims overwhelmed their reserves. Trade routes that relied on human-maintained stations fell into disarray. The Vraxian credit standard, the most stable currency in the galaxy, lost 18% of its value. Financial analysts projected that without immediate intervention, the galactic economy would contract by 30% within a standard year. Councillor Vreen commissioned an emergency economic assessment. The findings were delivered by analyst Prime Velcor, a Kelrath economist with 200 years of experience. His analysis painted a grim picture. Humanity represented 0.3% of galactic population, he reported, but contributed to nearly 12% of innovation and technical maintenance. They worked for lower wages than other species. They accepted positions that others found tedious. 2 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced a crisis that threatened the stability of known space. The emergency session had been going for 6 hours straight. Delegates from every major civilization sat in the Great Chamber, while economic reports scrolled across holographic displays. The numbers told a story of cascading failures that grew worse each day. Senator Laura Martinez would have appreciated the irony if she had been there to see it. She had warned the Council repeatedly that treating humanity as inferiors would have consequences. Now those consequences were destroying the galactic economy. The Zathrene commercial leagues reported catastrophic failures across their medical networks. Dr. Terena stood before investigators trying to explain how her entire organization had collapsed. She had been head of the prestigious Healing Collective, responsible for medical care across 14 worlds. Now her facilities could barely handle basic emergency care. The diagnostic algorithms were human-designed, she admitted. Her bioluminescence dimmed with shame as she spoke. We assumed they were simple tools that any competent technician could maintain. We were wrong. The code was elegant and sophisticated in ways we never understood. It integrated pattern recognition, predictive analysis, and treatment protocols into seamless systems. Without human technicians to maintain and update them, the algorithms degraded. Patient mortality has increased by 40%. We are watching people die from conditions we could easily treat 2 months ago. The medical crisis extended far beyond the Zathrene. Hospitals across Council Space discovered that human contributions had penetrated deeper than anyone realized. Surgical equipment calibrated by human engineers began producing inconsistent results. Pharmaceutical production facilities designed with human input experienced quality control failures. Medical research programs ground to a halt when LID researchers discovered their human colleagues had been the ones generating the most innovative hypotheses. One Kelrath hospital administrator put it bluntly in his report. We thought the humans worked for us. We're discovering they were carrying us. The Vraxian Industrial Consortium faced similar disasters on a massive scale. Production facilities across 17 worlds had ground to a complete halt. Overseer Crethmore reviewed damage reports with mounting horror. His crystalline body flickered through stress colors as he tried to comprehend the magnitude of the problem. Quality control systems failed within the first 2 weeks. Manufacturing equipment that had operated flawlessly under human supervision now produced defective products at alarming rates. Supply chain management protocols collapsed. Transportation networks experienced coordination failures. We thought we were the masters assigning tasks to an inferior species, Crethmore reported to the council. We never realized that humans had built interlocking dependencies into everything they touched. Not obviously. Not in ways our security could detect, but deep in the foundational code and design specifications. When you remove one piece, everything else begins to fail. The Kelrath Syndicate convened emergency board meetings across their corporate empire. Director Vexel presented findings that turned frustration into genuine fear. He had spent 3 decades building the Syndicate into the most powerful commercial entity in Council Space. Now he was watching it crumble. Humanity didn't just work for us, he told the board. They innovated for us. In 3 years, they filed over 16,000 patents. They developed 400 new alloys that revolutionized construction and manufacturing. They created treatments that extended our lifespans. Our researchers relied on human insights because humans approached problems from completely different angles. They saw solutions we couldn't imagine because their thinking wasn't constrained by thousands of years of established methods. Now that perspective is gone. Our development has stalled. Our competitors are struggling with the same problems. The entire galactic economy is discovering that innovation doesn't happen without the innovators. Small independent worlds that had hosted human communities faced complete infrastructure collapse. On Prellis Station, Administrator Catort sent increasingly desperate messages begging for assistance. The water recycling system had been redesigned by human engineers 6 months before their departure. It operated at twice the previous efficiency with half the power consumption. Now it was failing and none of Catort's remaining staff could diagnose why. We have the documentation they left behind, Catort reported, but it's written in technical language we struggle to parse. We brought in Vraxian engineers who are supposed to be the best in the galaxy. They spent 2 weeks studying the system and admitted they couldn't fully understand the design principles. The humans didn't just improve our water recycling. They completely reimagined how it could work. Without them here to maintain it, we're facing catastrophic system failure within weeks. The pattern repeated across hundreds of installations. Power generation facilities experienced unexplained efficiency losses. Transportation systems developed coordination problems. Communication networks suffered from degraded signal quality. Agricultural technology that had increased crop yields began producing inconsistent harvests. In every case, investigation revealed that human engineers or technicians had made improvements that others now couldn't replicate or maintain. The galaxy had become dependent on human expertise while treating humans as expendable labor. The Galactic Council commissioned a comprehensive economic assessment. Analyst Prime Velcor led a team of specialists who spent 6 weeks compiling data. Their final report ran to 3,000 pages, but the executive summary was devastating. Humanity represented 0.3% of galactic population, the report stated, but contributed to nearly 12% of innovation and technical maintenance across all sectors. They worked for lower wages than other species, making them attractive hires for cost-conscious organizations. They accepted positions other species found tedious or beneath their status. They solved problems with creativity born from being outsiders who weren't locked into traditional thinking. Most critically, they were motivated by a desire to prove themselves worthy of equality. That motivation drove them to excel in every field they entered. The economic projections got worse the further out they extended. Trade routes began failing as navigation systems went unpatched. The systems required regular updates based on stellar drift calculations that human astronomers had been providing. Without those updates, navigation accuracy degraded by 2% per month. That might not sound significant, but in interstellar travel, 2% error could mean arriving light years from your intended destination. Shipping companies reported increased transit times and fuel costs. Insurance rates for space travel jumped 40%. Food shortages emerged on industrial worlds that had relied on agricultural technology developed by human researchers. The Morthak Collective had converted 3 barely habitable worlds into productive farmland, using human-designed terraforming techniques. Those systems required constant adjustment and maintenance. Within 2 months of humanity's departure, crop yields dropped by 30%. The Morthak faced the possibility of famine among their worker populations. They tried bringing in agricultural experts from other species. None could match the intuitive understanding of ecology that human researchers had demonstrated. The famous Vraxian shipyards that had once produced vessels for half the galaxy could barely maintain half their previous output. Chief Engineer Zal Kron walked through facilities that should have been humming with activity, but stood mostly idle. Human designers had optimized every stage of production. They had improved welding techniques, enhanced material composition, and streamlined assembly processes. The shipyards had humans embedded at every level, from floor workers to senior engineers. Now those positions stood empty. Vraxian replacements couldn't match the pace or quality. Orders backed up. Clients went elsewhere only to discover that other shipyards faced identical problems. Financial markets across council space entered freefall. The Vraxian credit standard, stable for 3,000 years, lost 23% of its value in 6 weeks. The Kelrath exchange suspended trading twice to prevent complete collapse. Insurance companies faced bankruptcy as infrastructure failure claims overwhelmed their reserves. Pension funds that had invested in syndicate industries watched their values plummet. Economic analysts used words like depression and collapse in their forecasts. Some predicted the galactic economy would contract by 40% before stabilizing. Corporate entities that had employed large numbers of humans discovered unexpected problems beyond technical failures. Workplace morale plummeted when other species realized how much they had relied on human colleagues. A Zathrene manager on a manufacturing station sent a report that went viral across council space. "The humans on my team were always volunteering for the difficult assignments," she wrote. "They took night shifts so others could spend time with their families. They mentored younger workers. They kept morale up during stressful periods. I thought they did this because they were trying to prove themselves worthy. Now I realize they were just being decent people while we treated them as inferiors. Their absence has shown me that they were the best of us and we drove them away." 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for what felt like the 100th time. The Great Chamber no longer buzzed with the confident energy that had characterized it for millennia. Now the mood was somber and uncertain. Councillor Vreen of the Elothian Assembly stood to deliver the latest security report. His voice carried weariness that came from months of bad news. "Our deep space monitoring arrays detected unusual energy signatures in Sector 447, he announced. "Analysis suggests the presence of human vessels, but they vanished before our scouts could make contact. They possess faster-than-light technology, at least 40% more efficient than our best military drives. More importantly, they're not hiding from us. They're ignoring us." Fleet Admiral Crox added military perspective to the report. His crystalline body had lost some of its usual luster. We've documented 17 separate incidents where our patrol vessels encountered what we believe were human ships, he said. In each case, the humans detected our presence long before we detected theirs. They could have avoided us entirely, but instead they allowed brief sensor contact before departing. It's as if they're sending a message. They know we're looking for them. They simply don't care. Our fastest interceptors can't match their acceleration. Our most advanced sensors can barely track their energy signatures. We're not dealing with the technologically inferior species we thought we knew. The economic stabilization efforts had failed to reverse the damage. The Kelrath Syndicate hired expensive Vraxian consultants to replace human engineers. Those consultants charged triple what humans had earned and produced work at 60% efficiency. Medical facilities across Council space struggled with outdated equipment and degraded diagnostic systems. Research institutions posted unprecedented numbers of unsolved problems. The galaxy was learning to function without human contributions, but everything took longer, cost more, and achieved less impressive results. Director Vexall of the Syndicate delivered his resignation to the board after 40 years of service. In his final address, he spoke with brutal honesty about the Syndicate's failures. We built our expansion on an assumption that humans would always be available, he said. We thought they would always be willing to work for our terms. We believed they would remain grateful for any opportunity we gave them. We were catastrophically wrong on every count. The damage to the Syndicate's reputation and finances will take decades to repair. I failed to see what was obvious. That treating talented people as inferiors doesn't make them inferior. It makes you unworthy of their talents. But the most disturbing reports came from independent scouts and frontier observers who ventured into unexplored regions beyond Council space. Humanity hadn't fled into some remote corner to hide and recover. They were expanding. Captain Veltha of the merchant vessel Wandering Star sent a report that caused shockwaves through Council intelligence. She had been investigating a system for mineral deposits when her sensors detected a massive orbital construction. The station was beautiful, sophisticated, and clearly designed for long-term habitation. The architecture was distinctly human, but far more advanced than anything they had built in Council space. When Veltha approached the station, her communication system received a polite but firm message. "This is Armstrong Station Traffic Control," a human voice announced. "You are entering sovereign human territory. All visitors must file for permits and agree to our territorial regulations. Standard inspection and customs procedures will apply." Veltha was stunned. The tables had completely turned. Humans were now the ones granting or denying access to their space. She filed for a visitor permit, curious to see what humanity had built. The process was efficient and professional. She was granted a 48-hour pass to dock at Armstrong Station. What she saw there changed her perspective forever. The station housed over 50,000 people. It had manufacturing facilities, research laboratories, medical centers, and extensive residential areas. Children played in parks created with artificial gravity and atmospheric systems more elegant than anything in Council space. The humans she met were confident, purposeful, and showed no interest in returning to galactic civilization. One engineer she spoke with, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, explained their situation with refreshing directness. "We spent 3 years begging for equality and receiving condescension," Jennifer said. "Out here we don't beg. We build what we need. We solve our own problems. We make our own decisions. The galaxy taught us that we didn't belong at their table, so we built our own table, and honestly, we like it better." Other reports followed from different scouts. Human colonies discovered in resource-rich systems that the Council had surveyed, but deemed too difficult to develop. The humans had developed them anyway, using techniques that Council engineers insisted were impossible. Human trade vessels moving along routes that connected their new settlements, completely bypassing Council space. Human research stations in deep space studying stellar phenomena that no one else had bothered investigating. Every report painted the same picture. Humanity was thriving. Intelligence Coordinator Threx compiled everything known about human activities into a comprehensive briefing. He presented it to the Council with visible reluctance. The data was professionally gathered and thoroughly verified, but the conclusions were difficult to accept. "Humanity has established at least 40 new colonies in 6 months," he reported. "They're terraforming worlds at a pace that should be impossible for a species of their population size. They're building infrastructure faster than we can track. They're developing resources with efficiency that exceeds our best projections. We assumed they would struggle without Council support. The evidence suggests we were wrong about that assumption, just as we were wrong about so many others. He displayed images captured by long-range sensors, human ships with sleek designs that bore no resemblance to Council aesthetics. The vessels were smaller but faster than equivalent Council ships. Manufacturing centers on airless moons processing raw materials with minimal waste. Agricultural stations using advanced hydroponics and genetic techniques that produced higher yields than traditional methods. Defense satellites around human settlements that politely but firmly warned away any approaching vessels. The humans had learned from Council technology but then innovated beyond it. The Vraxian High Chancellor Krethvar finally spoke after listening to hours of reports. His voice had lost its usual authoritative tone. "Send another diplomatic envoy," he ordered. "Offer formal apologies for past treatment. Guarantee full reparations for any grievances. Promise complete autonomy within Council space. Whatever they want, give it to them. We need them back." The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what the Chancellor was really saying. The galaxy needed humanity more than humanity needed the galaxy. That was the new reality they had to accept. The diplomatic envoy was carefully prepared. Ambassador Terena volunteered to lead it despite her role in the medical community's collapse. She felt personally responsible for taking human contributions for granted. The envoy traveled to the last known coordinates of human activity in Sector 447. They broadcast their message on all frequencies for 3 days. It was humble, apologetic, and offered everything the Council had once refused. "We recognize that we failed to treat humanity with the respect and equality you deserved," the message stated. "We offer unconditional apologies and request the opportunity to establish new relations based on mutual respect. We guarantee autonomous territories, full Council representation, and complete self-governance. Please respond so we can begin dialogue." The response came on the 4th day. It was delivered by Commander Lisa Hayes, one of the diplomats who had sat in the Council chamber during those 3 years of fruitless negotiation. Her image appeared on the envoy's communication screen. She looked healthy and confident. Behind her, through the viewport, they could see a bustling space station. "Humanity appreciates the Council's message," Lisa said, "but we must respectfully decline. We came to you seeking partnership and found only hierarchy. We offered cooperation and received condescension. We proved our value repeatedly, and were told to wait our turn for equality that would never come. The galaxy taught us a valuable lesson. We didn't belong at your table, so we built our own." She paused and seemed to choose her next words carefully. "Our borders are now closed to Council vessels," Lisa continued. "Any unauthorized entry into human space will be considered a hostile act. We're establishing our own civilization based on principles of equality, innovation, and mutual respect. We hold no ill will toward the Galactic Council. We simply have no interest in rejoining a society that saw us as inferiors. We wish you well in addressing your challenges, but those challenges are no longer our responsibility. Humanity will make its own way among the stars." The transmission ended. The envoy attempted to respond but received only automated messages informing them they were in restricted space and should depart. After 6 hours of unsuccessful communication attempts, they returned to Council space. Terena delivered her report with deep sadness. "They don't hate us," she told the Council.